these are the notes going over 4.1 in Algebra 1, which is about writing equations in slope-intercept form. Before we start, let's go ahead and look at graphing this equation, which is in slope-intercept form, just as a quick review. So this negative 2/3, this is the slope. Slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b, and m is the slope. This 4 right here is the b is the y-intercept. So you put your point at 4, and then you count your slope. Negative 2/3 tells me to go down 2 and to the right 3. So start at the y-intercept and go down 2 to the right 3. And you can do it again if there's space. In this case, there's not. And then you just use a straight edge if possible, and draw a line going through them, putting arrows on both ends. Okay, so today what we are talking about writing equations in slope-intercept form. So we want them to be in y equals mx plus b. So your first step is to find the slope if you don't already know it. So remember, here's our slope formula. And so then you ask yourself, do you know the y-intercept? If you do know the y-intercept, then you can rewrite y equals mx plus b with the slope that you found substituted for m and the y-intercept that you found substituted for b. Now, just remember that the y-intercept is on the y-axis, so anytime it's on the y-axis, it has a 0 where x is, and it has a number where y is. That's how you know that's the y-intercept. Okay, if you don't know the y-intercept, one thing you can do is you can rewrite y equals mx plus b using the slope for m and another point, xy. And then you can solve for b, which is your y-intercept. That's one method you can do it. You can also use something we're going to learn in the next section called point-slope form. So today, most of what we will see, we will be either finding or calculating the slope, and then we'll be able to identify the y-intercept. Okay, so using slopes and y-intercepts to write equations. It says the slope is negative 3. So here we know the m is negative 3 because m is slope. The y-intercept is 1/2, so we know the b value is 1/2. And you are rewriting it as y equals mx plus b. So the m is negative 3, and then x, plus the b is 1/2. And that's the equation. Okay, so on this one, the slope is 0, so m equals 0, and the y-intercept is negative 2. So remember, we're using y equals mx plus b. So m is 0, so it's 0x, plus b. You can put plus a negative 2, because it is negative 2. Personally, I like to go ahead and just, as I'm writing it, write minus 2 because of the negative 2. Now, if you have 0x, that goes away because 0 times x is 0, so you just have y equals negative 2, which makes sense because that's a horizontal line, and horizontal lines have a slope of 0. Okay, example 2. Write an equation of each line in slope-intercept form. So first, let's find the slope. So to find the slope, we can count, just counting up and over. So remember, slope is rise over run. So I go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So my rise is 6. And I go to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4. So 6 over 4 is 3/2, and we want to leave that as a fraction. You typically don't write slope as a decimal unless it's possibly in a word problem, but we tend to like to leave it as a fraction if possible. So our slope is 3 over 2. This is our y-intercept right here. It goes through the y-axis at negative 3. So it's 3/2 x, because slope times x, and then minus 3, because the y-intercept is negative 3. Okay, let's try another one. We're going to find the slope. So we go down 1, 2, 3. So the slope, when you go down, you put negative 3. And then over the run. Run is left or right. So you go to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's negative 3/4. And then the y-intercept is right here. It's 2. So it's y equals, the slope was negative 3/4 x plus 2 because the y-intercept is at positive 2. And that's our equation. Okay, looking at example 3, we're going to focus on the first two of these. So we don't know our slope. So what we can do is we can use our slope formula, which is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So on top, -1 minus 5 is -6 over 0 minus -3. When you subtract a negative, you're adding it. So you get 3. -6 over 3 is -2. And then this right here is the y-intercept. How I know it's the y-intercept is because it has a 0 in the x location right here. There's a 0, comma, a number. That's how I know that's the y-intercept. So my equation is y equals, the slope is -2, and then x, the y-intercept is -1. And that's my equation. Let's look at b over here. So once again, we have 2 points. Let's go ahead and let's find the slope. So I have x1, y1, x2, y2. It just really helps me to label them personally. Remember the formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, on the top, when you subtract a negative, that's adding. So -5.8 plus 5.8 is 0. 8 minus 0 is 8. So your slope is 0. And then right here, you can see this point is your y-intercept. Remember that when there's 0 in the x location and then a number in the y location, that's our y-intercept. So our equation is 0x, and our y-intercept is -5.8. But remember, when it's 0x, that means there's no slope, so you just have y equals -5.8, which is a horizontal line, which, like we said earlier, makes sense because horizontal lines have 0 slopes. Okay, let's look at example 4. Example 4 always throws everyone off, but it's not hard if you just rewrite the function notation as points. So you see this function notation right here, f of 0 equals 10. 0 is the input. Remember, the input is x. 10 is the output. And remember, the output is y. So when you see it like this is the point 0, 10. And so on this other one, f of 6 is the input. Input's x. 34 is the output. Output's y. So it's making the point 634. So now that you have it as points, it's just like the last one. You go ahead and you do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And so that's 34 minus 10 over 6 minus 0. Okay, on top I get 24. On bottom I get 6. 24 divided by 6 is 4. All right, so there's your slope. And this is your y-intercept because do you see that it is 0 and comma, then a number? So that's the y-intercept. So now you have everything you need to write your line. You have y equals, m is 4, and then x. The y-intercept is positive 10. Okay, let's go ahead and try one more. So right here, you have f of -1 equals -8. So -1's the input. We learned that earlier in chapter 3, and that's x. -8's the output. That's y. So you can just rewrite it as the point, -1, -8. Then it looks more familiar. And then this is 3, 8. And then you can go ahead and you can find your slope. One thing I was thinking about as I look at this, we'll just return to the last one real quick. The one thing I would alter instead of y equals, since it's a function, we need to write it as f of x equals because they asked it to be as a function. So that's the one little change I'll make there. Okay, so let's continue on. So we're doing our slope, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And remember, when you subtract a negative, that's adding. So I get 16 over 4, which is 4. Okay, on this one, here's your slope, and neither of the points are the y-intercepts. So what we can go ahead and do there, this is one option. We're going to learn another way in 4.2. You can go ahead and you have y equals 4x plus b, but you don't know your y-intercept. If you're stuck like that, what our instructions said we could do is we could choose a point to be xy. I'm going to choose the point 3, 8. I like it better than -1, -8, simply because it doesn't have negatives. So I'm going to use this as x and y. So if you put 8 in where y is and 3 where x is, then you can do the math and find out what your b value is. So 4 times 3 is 12. So to get b by itself, just subtract the 12. And I ran out of room there. 8 minus 12 is -4 equals b. Now you know your y-intercept. And so sometimes you get stuck that way, and that's okay. You just do this process to find your y-intercept. So your slope was 4, and your y-intercept was -4. All right. And we'll try to keep them mostly where we have a number that's already our y-intercept, but that is one way that if you don't have either point being the y-intercept, you can go about it. So what I did was I found my slope, I plugged it in. Since I didn't have either point as a y-intercept, I chose one of them, and I plugged it in for x and y, and then I did the math to find b. And we'll find another way to do that in 4.2.